I mean, we see it every day in the classroom. Negative, it doesn't matter whether it's negative, the way they're acting out is in the negative side or not. They're going to do it because they want that attention. So just you being here, providing that, building that relationship with them is huge.
It tells them that they're special, right? That we care about them.
And they love it. They love it. Not about you, they love it. And it's all positive. I have not heard one negative comment about tutors. So thank you.
We are going to turn it over to Katie.
So I'm very much time with you guys before the students bombard us. So I'm just going to real briefly tell you what we're kind of doing today. Our college readiness, first of all, I hope everyone had great holidays. Over the holidays, we really reflected definitely like a record on how thankful we are for everything you're doing. So, I mean, every week it's a huge commitment, so thank you so much. But last month, our college readiness team met to kind of review the progress of this program. As most of you are aware, you are participating in the pilot stage of this program. Based on its success is whether or not it'll get scaled up and so forth. So last month was the first time that our team met to kind of review the progress. We really kind of dug into the surveys that you all have been submitting your feedback. And the team kind of thought it would be really nice, first of all, to have the opportunity to tell you all thank you so much and do a small, appreciation event. But really we wanted to provide you with a little additional support. A lot of the feedback was it's really hard to get the students focused. Sometimes it's really hard to get into these tutoring sessions. The students are having a hard time staying focused. And so we have John Raddick over here with Rasmussen College, and he's going to just give us some tips on what we can do to kind of get students on track and how to get focused and how to maybe have more productive tutoring sessions. Not that they're not productive, because like Renata said, based on the student surveys that we did receive recently, it's going really, really well. And just so you are aware, I did print a sample of those student comments on the very back sheet of your icebreakers. 99.9% of these were all extremely similar and overwhelmingly positive. I took out the ones that were identifying because a lot of them listed the tutor's name and so forth. So I'm not going to read through them. I hope you do, though, because they're just really, if you're ever questioning whether or not you're making a difference, you really, really are. He is awesome. I want him to be my tutor forever. Like, that's great. So we wanted to share those with you. And then as with, the school environment, there were semester course changes and student schedule changes. And so we really wanted this opportunity to, those of you that were affected with these changes, I did email you yesterday. So most of you who had changes have been notified. If you want to check with me, I have the schedules before you leave. So we wanted the opportunity today for the new students and possibly the previous tutors and the new tutors to maybe kind of make connections with one another. Susan's going to explain when we get to the point, your card in front of you, but that's going to help any schedule changed, affected tutors and students to find you. We'd like you to meet today, moving forward.
One more thing I forgot to say when I was talking is I gave you all a pack of these. There's at least 10 in your pack. These are Wildcat bucks, and teachers typically give out a $1 Wildcat buck, but tutors and certain other personnel in the building are able to give out $2 bucks. And you know what? If you have a good day with your kids, this would be a great thing to give them. Sixth graders love these. They can use these twice a week, or twice a month. There's a store during lunch, and they get to go down there and buy stuff for themselves. So they love to get these.
And let them know when you meet with them for the first time, let them know that you have, because they know what they are.
They know what they are.
And they know how to order them.
If you're having any behavior trouble, this might help many of that.
Oh yeah, there's
So we're going to get into the training and kind of Q&A session. And what we're really looking to do here, the training part's going to be really, really basic. John's going to go through, the first sheet you got there on a productive tutoring session. And then we're going to, Chris McGee with Rockland Public Schools, John, I, Susan are going to be here to answer the questions you have. We'll go through a couple icebreaker situations on the sheet. And then really just have time for you all to discuss as a group any challenges, any experiences that might help one another, or anything that we can do to make the program better, to support you better, that we'd like to do that. For the students come, we did have 4 that have graduated out of the tutoring program based on your midterm assessment. So we're going to recognize those students. It's really special, and thank you for all you're doing. So John, you want to...
All right, take a look. I put together a quick handout that I think is going to be helpful just in terms of long-term notes like this. One of the things I think is really helpful to do when you're tutoring is to talk with other tutors. Because tutoring is an isolated experience when you're working individually with a student, some of the things you're hearing, even just how do I keep a student on track, or some of the things you saw in the survey, when one student is advanced and one student is a little bit further behind, how do I keep them on the same page? Sometimes it's helpful to hear from other tutors to know that your challenge is the same as other tutors. And so I want you to know that what you saw in the survey, what you said so far, very, very common challenges with students. It's not specific to this group, that's not specific to this age. And so I think that some training and development can be helpful and supportive of that. So I just want to walk through basic strategies for how to structure any tutoring appointment, and sort of walk through some things that might be useful to you. And first, let me point out a huge advantage that this group has. You are working with the same student every day. How many of you feel like you know within the first 5 minutes whether your student's having a good day or a bad day, right? That's because you're working with them over and over again. That is a huge advantage, and that's only going to grow over time. So I just want to walk through some basics of how to set up a successful tutoring appointment. Before I even walk through this, I want to be clear. You guys know this as well as anybody. No day is the same. You know, some days are going to be more effective than others. Students having a bad day, that's going to affect how well and how far you're going to be able to get with that tutoring appointment. Those who students are like. This is not a cookie cutter model. What I can say is that successful tutors do this more consistently. So I just want to walk through some of the stages of a tutoring appointment that might be able to help out here. So here's what I did. So the orange is the stage. The second line, the middle line here, is what's in it for the student. And the bottom line is why we do that for you, the tutor. What information you can gain from that particular stage. And the first one is probably the most important one. When you see a student over and over again, is that first stage of building rapport, seeing how that student's day is going. Really, really critical because it helps the student trust you. There's 2 main goals of this program, at least as far as I understand it. Certainly we want to help improve the student's content knowledge, but a large part of it, particularly with math, is building the student's confidence. How many of you are successful math students or feel confident with math? When you see a problem you don't know, how do you approach it?
Great.
That's a you, not your student.
Google it.
Google it. Sure, absolutely. You would Google it. What else might you try?
Call someone and look at it up in the textbook.
Sure. These are problem-solving techniques. For your students who are not confident in math, what do they do when they see a problem they have never seen before? They study. Sure. What else do they do? What do you see them doing in tutoring appointments then? They panic, sure. How many of you have seen a student refuse to even try? Fold like a deck of cards. Right? I don't even know where to start, is what they might say. They might say, I've never even seen anything like that before. Or they might, this is also very common, they might also start a totally different topic of conversation to try and distract, right?
One of my students tried to copy off the other one. Why don't we work together?
Sure. A lot of that, I wasn't there in the observatory appointment, but that's very common. And it's because of math anxiety. You can call it stress, you can call it anxiety, whatever you want to call it. They don't feel confident as a math student. And part of what we're trying to do here is get them to try. Because see, what we know about successful math students is half the battle is just grappling with a problem. Successful math students problem solve. They think critically. They try different approaches, and eventually they get to a solution. Students who struggle with math aren't willing necessarily to engage in that process problem solving and thinking through. And one of those things that you can do in that first 5 minutes by building that connection with the student time and time again is to get them to trust you. What does it take to be vulnerable, to try something you're not confident in? It takes trust. It takes a willingness to fail in front of someone else. And that's for any subject and any person, right? And that's part of what we're trying to do there in that first stage. So that's something you can get out of that experience, and that trust in you that you'll be that safety net, something the students can get out of that first few minutes. So you might overlook it because we might want to get right to that objective, right into the content of the day, but that rapport building, that trust building, really, really critical that we do that in every single tutoring appointment. The second stage is about establishing a goal for a session. How many of you have had a student not make any progress during a tutoring appointment? Spend the whole time with you and got distracted, right? Sure, absolutely, it happens. Sometimes students have bad days, sometimes they're scared to try. These kinds of things are very common during appointments. And one of the things that can be helpful if you reiterate it as part of a common structure for how you spend your time with students together is setting goals for sessions. Simply asking a student, what do you want to get done today? By asking that question over and over again, the first time the student is not going to know that answer, right? But by asking that question over and over again, what we're hoping to get to is a student thinking about that question when they're in class, so that when they come to you, they know exactly what they're stuck on. Wouldn't it be really helpful if a student came to you and said, I know that I can do the first 2 steps of this problem, but I don't know anything after that, right? Most of the time they come in and they say, I don't know where to start. So what we're trying to get them to do is think about where specifically they're stuck before they even come to that tutoring appointment. Help them identify that. And that's really helpful for you because it limits the scope of the appointment. Sometimes what happens with tutoring appointments is the student wants to work on everything, right? It's going really well, and so I just want to keep going. I want to talk about everything under the sun today. And when we only have 45 or 60 minutes with the student, it's really important that we limit that scope. The next stage is working through example problems. The next two go hand in hand. And what a lot of tutors do naturally is they work through those example problems. They show students how it's done. But it's really important to transition to that 4th stage. It's not just you showing the student how the problems are done, but really pushing students to give it a try, to work independently, even if it's only for 5 minutes, even if they aren't able to get that answer. We're trying to encourage those habits of grappling with problems, of trying to solve things that they're not sure how to do. Right? And so obviously those are the 3rd and 4th sections. The last thing, and this is something that if you're making really great progress with the student, is really helpful, is to do an assessment or a recap part of that. That's sort of the final stage of a normal tutoring appointment. I call that the proof point. That's when you can prove to a student how much progress they've made that day. Right? When they set that goal, did they achieve that goal or not? Can you do this problem or not? And that's how we can start to build confidence over time, right? You said at the beginning of the session that you wanted to do this. Let's see if you can do it. Let's give it a try. Or if they weren't able to set that goal, you can say things like, at the beginning of the session, you weren't able to do this. Now give it a try. And you can see that in very small steps. You can see that start to build somewhat of that confidence there. A couple other things here. I think that last part is certainly a great opportunity that you have to make that connection to career applicability. If you can talk about how this might be useful in the real world, or now that you know this, you might be able to X, Y, or Z. I think that really sets you up really well for that next tutoring appointment. If setting goals with the tutor or with the student in the tutoring appointment is really hard to do with the student, that's one way to make some progress there, is help the student understand where they are at the end of one tutoring appointment so that you know where to begin at that next tutoring appointment. Does that sort of make sense, or building from one tutoring appointment to the other?
Well, I have found that we'll work on something during a week, and then we come back the next week and they're doing something entirely different. And that's been almost the case every single week. There's not a lot of continuity for us. I mean, I'm sure during the rest of the week they finish and try out and start. But what we see is has no
No connection to week to week.
So I wonder if, I'm sorry, teacher, we structure our lessons usually with a bell ringer, which is sometimes a review. So I wonder if your icebreaker thing could be just a quick review of what you did last week, right? Like your goal last week was this, right? We tried that skill, we kind of had some movement on it. Let's just try one problem like that, just to get us moving, right? And then dive into the new material. And that might be a way for you to get to see some success too, right?
Well, I don't know about everyone else, but we rarely get the paperwork. The students bring it with them, it's their work. And then when they're gone, it's gone. I mean, we're not given independent, like an additional
Do
copy.
you think that would help if you had?
Well, if you want us to go back and review something from before,
So
yeah.
maybe set up just a simple folder where like you can jot your goal down for the session, right? And then you could keep that folder maybe in this room. So the next session you could open it up and say, okay, this was your goal from last week. You're looking confused.
I'm
So
not confused, I'm thinking that the way we are set up here, the tutor, we go to the math room, given the students' paperwork. Mr. Cross, for instance, tells us what he wants to accomplish on that paper. And then we come here generally, and then we work on that specific thing that ties into what he's doing in the classroom. And then, but we are not given, you know what I'm saying, we don't have their paperwork.
We need to make a copy.
If we had their workbook, if we had a copy of that,
Just a copy of the sheets they have, whatever they're working on.
So what I'm hearing is that, is it such that you want every tutor wants a workbook, or the workbook could like be a resource in this room?
I'll be honest, I know I can't get every tutor a workbook because right now I don't have a workbook for every student in the building, okay? I don't have an extra book in the room.
is there a copy machine in this room?
No, there's not a copy machine.
I'm just saying, I think we're working well within the guidelines we have. But when you suggest we go backwards and try to pick up something and bring, I think that's unrealistic given where we are right now.
Okay.
Just so we're all on the same page. I see a lot of heads nodding, so I don't think I'm making it up.
Okay. Well, I guess, the vision I had in my head, and, you can take it or leave it, it won't hurt my feelings, right? It's like, the tutor would come up, I'd have a little folder, 2-pocket folder, that would be my tutoring folder, that I would just bring every time, or maybe I keep it in the room, right? And in that folder, I would have some paper, and I would say to the student when we started our goal setting, what's our goal for the day? Let's write down our goal for the day, right? We'd write down our goal for the day, and the teacher doesn't need that, right? But I could keep that in my folder, so that the next session, we could just do a quick review, like last week's goal, we worked on this. Maybe let's just do one of those, just a quick refresher problem, right? And then we'll dive into what Mr. Kraus wants to do this week, right? So now what's our goal for this week? We're gonna jot it down on that same piece of paper. It's just our goal setting sheet that I can then take with me, or perhaps leave somewhere in this room that I can just grab. That's what my vision is inside my head.
I bring a folder with me all the time.
Yeah, I think we all
We
do.
just don't get copies of the work now, so we could take notes. If there was a copy machine available that we could copy what they did, that would be helpful too.
If you want an extra worksheet, that's what you want, we can let Mr. Kraus know that he should
Yeah.
always give you an extra worksheet.
That would be
yeah,
perfect.
Which
That
would
would
not
be
be a
I mean,
problem.
it isn't that he doesn't often have them because we ask for them all the time, and he doesn't even always have enough all the time. So, I mean, I realize you're working on it. I'm just saying, pretty limited resources, but we can certainly jot down important things and go
Yeah.
backwards if you want.
Well, sometimes that helps kids see their own growth.
Yeah.
Because, like, especially middle school age kids, everything is about instant, this moment, right? And they, like backwards planning or forwards planning, they don't have that perspective, right? So sometimes they get frustrated because they don't see their growth. And we could go back and just say, okay, look, we did this last week. Oh yeah, look how easy it is for me now. And now let's use that as a success springboard for next week. Or I really didn't get it last week, so my note to Mr. Kraus when we go back to the classroom is, he's still struggling with last week's stuff. Just FYI, and maybe Mr. Kraus says, well, it doesn't matter, we're moving on anyway, or maybe we should do some remediation with that. I've learned in 22 years of education is there are no magic bullets, right? So all you can do is keep trying, you know?
So we've just got a couple minutes before the students start and they want pizza real bad. And I wish we could get lots for dinner, but it can always be pizza, so I'm sorry. Any really pressing issues, anything that we really could do better, anything we need to better support you. I know that we are limited in some things, but anything you want to bounce off each other.
I don't know if my students are doing any better than when they started. And, you know, I don't know if I'm entitled to know that now. I guess it would just kind of help to know whether we're really making any progress or not, you know. Are we spinning our tires or?
Sure. And what I want to remind everybody too, that we kind of talked about, we're not expecting a huge increase in scores this first year. What we need to really impact first is math confidence. And we have been collecting student surveys up until right before December. Yeah. And all of those surveys showed increases in math confidence. One student even reported that their STAR scores have increased as a result of tutoring. 4 of the students have now been graduated out of the tutoring program into honors math. So there's a lot of indicators for us that are showing you're doing great things, but we're not expecting huge score increases. We're monitoring them, and at the very end of the school year, we'll report all of our findings to you all. I know that it's very important that you know as much as we know what.
Another thing that we did is we also gave the kids an actual math confidence survey. I want to say it was maybe the beginning of November. All the math classes in the building. So we're going to look specifically at the tutoring students. So we're going to give that same survey again at the end of the year and see if their math confidence has actually changed based on the way they read that survey. So.
And the CAA scores come out, all of that, we will let you all know what we find out. Obviously, we won't give you student names, you know, but averages of the student bodies in the program.
If we're having individual questions for the students, can we maybe stay today and talk to you or deal with that or make an appointment? It's not a generic issue, it's just specific one individual.
Sometimes be a Susan thing, but for sure.
Or not. I just don't know what the issue is, so.
Well, I mean, we're talking about a student who's been suspended. I don't know if she's going to be continuing. I didn't get her new student, but I'm just wondering if she's going to be on that. I just want a little update.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so, and then one last thing, I'm going to be sending all of this that we've gone over today. I'm trying to record it, we'll see if that happens. And I'm going to send everything out via email. If you would like other ways to be corresponded with, could you just check in with me and let me know at the end of this session?